Molly Roberge, um, and I am from Denver, Colorado. I just graduated from Gonzaga University with a degree in sociology and minor in journalism. And I'm currently working at St. Louis University High School as an academic counselor. And I have a working memory deficit and dyslexia. To describe a working memory deficit, it's it's where you hold information and then you're also trying to manipulate that information at the same time. And so for me, it's very hard to kind of be playing with a lot of different information at one time. So if I'm introducing myself to somebody, it's hi, I'm Molly, and they're like, oh, hi, I'm Jim, and then we go on to talk about pleasantries or like however the weather is, and then a minute goes by and I can't remember what his name is because I'm too busy focusing on the other information. Or in like a classroom setting, for me, my working memory deficit usually plays out if I'm being given directions, and the three difference of what I'm supposed to be doing, and either I'll remember the first part or I'll remember the last part, but the three parts, I'm not going to get it all. It was frustrating at times, and it kind of made me a little apprehensive to be in the classrooms. I was always anxious that I would get called on in class, and that I would have to answer a question right on the spot. When usually for me, I like to think about my answers for a little bit. Maybe write it down or write down the question. So it was more beneficial if I had teachers, ask a couple beginning in the class and then re-summarize it at the end. So then I had my answers prepared and I was ready. It was also, like I said a little bit before, frustrating and just I felt kind of frustrated and lost because I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing a lot of the time with, directions not being retold. And so a lot of times when it comes to tests, it would be frustrating because that memorization portion was very difficult. And, a lot of times I felt, well, it's I understand the content, and I could write a paper about this, or I could explain this more in depth. But when you sit down and give me like a multiple choice test, it's not where I thrive, and so it could be frustrating. Um, it was frustrating for me. Even though it was frustrating, I had many teachers that I can say helped me become successful, or I guess a graduate at least. And the ones that kind of stand out for me, I had a professor in college, and so I had trouble with memory and recall, and so reading large amounts of paper, articles and books, I wasn't retaining all the information that I should have been. And so, she would say, at the end of each page, write down, a few things that you got out of that, or, at the end of an article, write down. And so then instead of having to go back and read, 40 pages all over again, you have those summaries with you. And so I was able to take, that information with me as I went on. Or another teacher that I had in high school, Mr. Vincent, physics or science courses for students with working memory deficit are especially hard because you're taking that information and then you're trying to reapply it, and then you're gathering more information and reapplying it. And so for working memory, it's very difficult. And I was taking physics at the time, and I had struggled through bio and chemistry, and I was frustrated. And I would come in, and he's like, come in before school, come in after school, come in during, whatever off periods you have, and I'll sit there and help you. And not only did he give me those opportunities to come in and ask, but when I was there, I didn't feel like I was that dumb, troubled student that was always in his office. He made it fun, he made it light, and he made it easier for me to go then forward and ask more teachers for help and kind of reach out. Because sometimes before I had felt when I reached out, I was automatically kind of, my wrist was slapped, like, you should know this, or why are you in here asking help? So he really kind of opened my eyes to that. And then I think, though my mom isn't a teacher, she really helped me kind of pick up those learning skills that I wasn't getting quite off the bat. So flashcards, she brought that to my attention, that was a great, resource for me. Color coordinating things and organization, all things that I never really had thought about before, she kind of brought to the forefront and helped me with in the beginning so that I could carry those out. play on their strengths and not their weaknesses. I mean, it's very easy to see the negative things that they are doing instead of the positive things. I know myself, I get caught up in that all the time. But that's kind of the big thing. But also for working memory deficit specifically, I mean, if teachers can really, start off in the beginning of class by just introduction, doing an introduction, this is what we're going to be doing today, going more in depth about, the stuff that you're going to do, and then recap. And so you're constantly putting that information at them in a forefront kind of thing, forum so that they can look at it. Especially for working memory, having that constantly in your face really helps us out. I didn't start advocating for a long time. It was probably college when I really started to grow my own voice. Throughout, middle school and high school, I knew I had a learning disability, and it was kind of a thing that I didn't want people to know about, and that it was very hush-hushed, and I wouldn't even tell my my professors, or my teachers, unfortunately. But my high school was a little different, that they made us go on retreats, and during one of the retreats, I kind of came to this self-realization that, this is who I am, and this is something I'm not going to hide, from people. Why would you? It's been wrapped up in my identity since I'm young, and, it's going to be wrapped up in my identity, as I go on. So it's something that I embraced, and so I embraced this. I'm a dyslexic, or I'm a person with dyslexia, I'm a person with working memory deficit, and so how do I go on from there? And it wasn't until college when I kind of got involved with Eye to Eye that I realized I'm not the only one, and that there are a lot of resources out there for me, and I just need to ask for them. And so when I saw it was empowering to see other students my age being like, no, that's unacceptable. You should be getting those accommodations, and you should be asking your professor for extended time, or you should be asking your professor if you can have a note taker in class, and if he says no, that's not okay. And so it was empowering to see other people like me getting those accommodations and asking for it. And it's important to have that conversation, and I think I didn't realize it until I heard other people talking about it. I didn't realize sometimes even the things that I was struggling with. I was like, oh, they're talking about that they have trouble remembering directions too. That's part of my working memory deficit that an aspect that I didn't even realize. And so I think that communication aspect is where a lot of students get lost, whether they are understanding what goes along with their learning disability, or what kind of accommodations they can get. So I think that's kind of the important part, that no one ever really sat down and was like, hey, these are the aspects of, this is what your learning disability is like. It was just like, this is what you have, so you're going to be struggling. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be struggling. I don't, what does that mean? So that's, I think, the biggest part is communication. I was working with this boy, Darren, and, he was having trouble sitting still in class. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe we can give you like a paper clip, and, or you could have like a fidget, and you can, be moving them in your hands, and then maybe that will help you pay attention in class. Or, sitting still in tests, he had a hard time, he just was fidgeting. It's like, maybe you can use that. And a couple weeks go by, and then he comes back in the room, and he's got this beaming smile on his face, and he's like, I got an A! I got an A in my history class. And it was all because he was able to have that conversation, and he was able to understand how he learned that was possible. And, I wouldn't be a graduate, from college, or I wouldn't be sitting as an academic counselor, not today, if it wasn't for those conversations that we're having, talking about how we learn and how we learn differently. And that's what I find very important. I could be very much a nursing major, which I probably would have failed out because science courses, again, are my strong suit. But I'm not. I'm here working with students that I relate to, and I know what it feels like to be them, and so I find my job very rewarding. And so hopefully more conversations can start happening. I guess I want to tell them thank you for taking the course, and thank you for caring about your students and wanting to learn about them, because that's the first step, is learning their differences and just being there and caring for them. And that's really all that you really need to do. So thank you for taking the course.